Hello and welcome to a 12-part lecture series about the journey around Kailash. Now, you may have seen the videos from Laudu for last year's journey around Kailash. We're going to be using those videos in this 12-part series, but I'm also going to be giving you a lot more information along with each video, along with each lecture. Over the last few weeks, I've mentioned to you that Lantos has recently been focused quite a bit on visualization, on having each of us focus our minds on something that is going to be taking place in May. Clearly, there is something very powerful about all of us focusing our attention on this, on every step of what's going to be taking place in May. For this lecture series, Lantos's instructions to us were for me to provide you with information 2 or 3 times each week, a lecture that would go step by step through the process of Laudu, the Whisker Man, going around the lake at Kailash and then going around the mountain Kailash itself. This is the process of stirring Kailash so that the flowing waves of nectar are generated. So we'll have a 12-part lecture, 2 or 3 lectures each week, and in each lecture I will introduce what is going to be happening, the steps that Lantos has instructed for that part, and we'll be watching a video from Laudu from last May where he spoke about his experience at each of those steps. So that's going to be our 12-part series, so that we make it as powerful as possible. As we go through this, do your best to picture in your mind the steps that Laudu took last year and that he will once again take this year in May. Try to visualize yourself being there and what's going on and taking the journey with him. So these were the instructions that I sent to Laudu shortly before he departed for his journey to Kailash. They were listed day by day in his process. May 26th of last year was the first day of it. May 15th will be the first day this year. The first step was to go around the lake just south of Kailash. He was to use a car so he could complete the journey around the lake in just one day, make stops along the path and visit the holy locations, ask the experts where along the path may the waters be received, and that he was to travel at least halfway around the lake before collecting the water and pouring the water over the spheres that went into your Kailash pendants of bliss. This time in May, he will be taking spheres with him again, but these spheres are going to be for the Kailash strands, as well as the dragon strand of abundance, the 3 jade dragon strand. So the Kailash strands and the 3 jade dragon strands of abundance, he will be using those spheres, carrying those around the mountain with him. After collecting the water from the lake in a bottle or container, he was to find a private location to pour the water over the spheres. Lantos explained that even sprinkling a little water over the spheres will be effective. Having circled around the second lake, go around that first lake, go to the second lake and biooscillate the form of this lake. This will bring great blessings. Lantos explained this is the lake of the solid form sinks. This lake captures the impurities shed from the process of purification of the holy lake. Remember, when you stand along a body of water, this could even be the Pacific Ocean, and you just stand on the shores of it and you use the biooscillator, it has a significant effect on the water. After completing the journey around the lake and biooscillating the second lake, then he was to go to a hotel nearby the lake before proceeding to go around the mountain and spend the night there. That night at the hotel, he was to use a wand over all of the spheres, brushing in circular motions with the wand above the spheres. Then he was to hold the super water cell and song of the spheres in the left hand and the super star cell in his right hand. And then he was to perform the sounds of bliss and then the sounds of reflective bliss. He would do this each night on his journey. The next day, he was to begin his journey around the mountain Kailash. On the first day, begin at the south face of the mountain, travel west, continue to the west face, and then proceed to the north face. Spend a night at the location of the north face. And of course, that night, remember to perform the sounds of bliss and reflective sounds of bliss with his super star cell, super water cell, and song of the spheres over these spheres. Then the next day, in the morning, locate a path that would take him up to the north face of the mountain. Approach the north face, take some time there at the north face, enjoy the process of the transition between the spin key and the realm lord. Lantos explained that this is the domain of the sublime domain of bliss. As he approaches the north face, he was to pause for some minutes to perform the sounds of bliss and the reflective sounds of bliss while he's carrying the spheres with him. Then, the next day, and that night, go back to the hotel at the north face, spend another night there, and remember to enliven the sounds of bliss and reflective sounds of bliss over the spheres that night as well. The next day, go from the north face to the east face of the mountain. Now, this is the one that goes on a very high pass, 18,000 feet. So it takes an entire day just to go from the north face to the east face. He was to take his time. There was no need to rush, and he was to spend the night at another hotel on the east face. And, of course, perform the sounds of bliss and reflective sounds of bliss that night before bed over the spheres. Then on the final day, he would proceed from the east face to the south face to complete his journey around the mountain. So those were the instructions that he was given. Now, through most of these 12 lectures, I will be reading messages from Lantos to you. The messages that we used to come up with the instructions for Lao Du. There will be a few of the lectures where there aren't any additional messages from Lantos, so I'll just tell you what's going on, and then we'll watch the video together of Lao Du. But for this first one to begin, we have 2 messages from Lantos, both fairly short, but they introduce the concept of having someone walk around Mount Kailash. Cindy had asked Lantos, he had mentioned the Kailash pendant of bliss, and that we had a good friend in China, Lao Du, who was wondering if he should go to Mount Kailash to assist with anything, because he could do that. And Lantos said, yes, the Whisker Man will go to the spot at the center, the receptacle of bliss. Here he will encircle the mountain, carrying the beads of the bliss pendant. 1 full circle is sufficient. In this way, the spheres of bliss will be activated within the natural device of Kailash. It is a naturally occurring device of bliss on this earth, the great central receptacle of bliss. The pendants of initial rotations may be initialized with the energy of the great central translator. Once the spheres have been encircled, the great central receptacle, they may be installed within the pendants. So that was the first message that we had from Lantos about this, the first idea that someone would actually go around Mount Kailash. And then a few days later, Lantos was talking with Cindy, and he said, it will be good. Yes, it will be very good for our dear Master of Bliss to encircle the blessed lake of Kailash. You'll notice that he just got a promotion from Whisker Man to Master of Bliss. He was pretty happy about that when we told him. Anyway, so he said, it will be very good for our dear Master of Bliss to encircle the blessed lake of Kailash. On the day of the full moon of this month, there is a transition of darkness into light. There is a dip in the light of the moon and a return of the moon's full light. On this day, our dear Master of Bliss shall visit holy locations around the sacred lake. As the path around the lake is completed, it will be good to offer the blessed waters of purification to the spheres. Bathe the spheres in the holy waters of this sacred lake. Immerse the spheres in the waters, or, through the use of receptacle, pour the waters over the spheres. As the day concludes, this water shall cleanse the spheres from the burden of sufferings in the darkness before the return of the light. The moon on this night signals the return of the light which never fails, the light of bliss, eternal light. The following day, cleansed by the purifying waters, the journey around Kailash may begin. The great mountain is encircled on foot by our blessed Master of Bliss, and each face of the mountain showers blessings upon the spheres. The north face of Kailash is the face of the Realm Lord. Special instructions shall be provided for activities at this sacred site. It is through this process of circumambulation that the spheres are initialized by the great central receptacle of bliss, Kailash. Very good. Many blessings. So those were the messages that Lantos gave us to introduce the concept of someone walking around, circumambulating Mount Kailash itself to provide a benefit to those spheres that went into your Kailash pendant of bliss. Let's go ahead and watch the first video together, the first of the travel log, the travel diary from the Whisker Man, Laudu, the Master of Bliss.
Welcome to the journey of Kailash, the ceremony of nectar. This course is presented in the format of a travelogue. 16 short episodes which narrate this amazing story. We will venture together on this sacred journey, presenting the sights and sounds, even the smells and tastes of these days of the journey. It was such a sacred journey that it's called a ceremony. This means that it is a process. It's a procedure to enliven the nectar of bliss. We are very fortunate to have someone in our close circle of friends who is willing to take this journey. It's not your typical journey. It's not your typical vacation. It's a journey which begins, in this case, at sea level in Shanghai, and quickly rises up to above 15,000 feet, and then continues to rise to over 18,000 feet. It was at the end of April this year, 2021, that we heard about the course of bliss and the connection between bliss and the mountain Kailash. I happened to be speaking with a dear friend of mine in Shanghai, Lao Du, and it just so happened that when he heard about this course and its connection with Mount Kailash, he mentioned to me that he had previously been to this mountain, and he immediately had the question of whether it would be valuable for him to go to Mount Kailash and be present there during this course. Could it be of any value? The answer was yes, and not just yes, but yes with a whole series of instructions regarding timing and preparations to get many spheres, little balls, thousands of small spheres made of glass and crystal for him to carry around the sacred mountain, and also to take these spheres around a nearby holy lake and purify them in these waters. In these 16 mini episodes, we will share with you this most incredible event, and we hope that you will gain a feeling and gain a taste of the profound nectar which was generated during this sacred Kailash ceremony.
Hi everybody, it's glad to share with you about my journey to the mountain Kailash. First of all, let me introduce myself. You can call me Lao Du, or also you can call me the Whisker Man, like Lentils called me. And actually, I am a person with a lot of questions. I always ask questions, but the question is not about myself. It's about how we benefit this world, benefit Earth. The first time I asked the question about 2012, the question is, could we bury the pendant of internal light to the different place, like have some war or some bad things happen to benefit this world? And the answer is yes. So after that, we start a very big project leading by Dr. Chiqing Wu, my teacher. There's a lot of Chinese people donate the pendant of internal light, and myself and some other friend, we go all around the China to bury more than I think more than 300 pendant of internal light, all by donation, and to benefit the country. And then we also buried the chambers of internal light from China, also in India, and a different place, and also the 5 light of internal light. When Cindy shared with me of the bliss session, and that I noticed that it said the mountain Kailash is the center of the bliss for this earth. So I asked, maybe I can attend that session, and when I attend that online session, maybe I can go to the mountain Kailash. So if I attend the session there, is that any benefit to the other people attend the bliss session? So Cindy asked the question, then the counselors come back. It says, we will have another arrangement that the Lentils ask me to go to the mountain Kailash and carry all the spheres, and then we can bring all the bliss energy back. And now they will come to you if you like. That's the start of the story, how we start. you.